Good evening. This is Vicki Partlow. This is my special education interview for Module 3, EDL 853. I interviewed 3 members of the Rock Hill Elementary staff. First is Jessica Corwin. She's an assistant principal and the administrative designee for special education. She's been an assistant principal for 2 years. She previously taught 9 years in first grade and 1 year in fourth grade before she moved into the assistant principal's position at Rock Hill Elementary. Kathy Erickson is an early childhood special educator. She's been a special education teacher for 20 years, and 15 of those years have been with the early childhood program. Wendy Hatterley is an early childhood paraprofessional. Wendy has worked in both the general education classrooms and the special education classrooms as a paraprofessional. Our child find procedures in Stafford County are the same across the board. For our elementary students, K through 5, we follow the tiered model of intervention before children are referred for a special education evaluation. After the Tier 3 meeting is held and the child still continues to make little to no progress, a referral to our special education team is made. The team meets to review the interventions, makes a referral for evaluation. After the evaluation, eligibility is determined, and then an IEP is written within 30 days of that eligibility. With our preschool program, it's a little different. We have a separate Child Find office located in another part of the county. The Child Find office receives referrals from parents, or they receive transition referrals from our early intervention program for the birth to 3-year-olds. When parents call in with a referral, they are scheduled for a screening. If that screening determines that they need further evaluation, then the special education team, or the Child Find team actually meets. They get permission for an evaluation. An evaluation is conducted, and then if they're found eligible, an IEP is written. The difference is that parents have to go to the attending school to register their child. We have 17 elementary schools in Stafford County, but only half of them have preschool programs. So a lot of times the child is not going to a preschool that's within their district their school. When we talked about the most challenging part of your role in regards to special education, I think the biggest issue my 3 interviewees said was that just understanding parents, juggling their expectations, making sure that their demands and requests are being met, and that they understand, they feel that parents don't seem to understand that we also want what's best for their child. For Jessica, it was more about understanding the law that governs special education. She had little to no special education background when she took over the assistant principal's position. So she was kind of learning on the fly and as she goes, and through people who had been in a special education program for many years. Kathy actually indicates that home visits are one of her most challenging things because she does not like to do them. But she says that sometimes parents don't really know what the purpose of the home visit is, even after you've explained it to them. And so it's always a little bit awkward with new parents the first time you go out for the home visit. And for Wendy, it was making sure that, all the kids in the program, their needs are being met. The most rewarding part of their job, I think overall, was that just seeing kids when that light bulb goes off, or when they understand what's going on, when they make those connections, and how proud they are of themselves when they do. Jessica says that she just loves just going into the classroom and seeing what our teachers do for our children with special education needs and for our children in the general education classrooms. For Wendy, it was really knowing that she did a good job. And what she meant by that was that she knew that something that she had done had helped that child. Overall advice for supervision was really the communication. Overall, all three of them felt that communication was the main um, thing to have with special education staff, general education staff, paras, whoever is involved with that student. Making time for the teams to come together and talk, making sure you communicate with the case manager about their special needs children, were some of the things that Jessica had said. And for Kathy and Wendy, it was based on clear expectations, especially with paraprofessionals. You really need to write down what your expectations are and to make sure that they understand what they're expected to do in the classroom. And Wendy also felt that paraprofessionals need to be kept up to date for things like IEP changes, parent issues. These are like important things she felt that as a para that she needed to know in order to make sure that she's working with the child correctly, that she is communicating with the parent appropriately. She felt that these were so very important to do in terms of supervision of staff. How do you effectively work with parents with special needs? You know, Jessica said that you really need to acknowledge their concerns, really give them an opportunity to be heard. That most of the time when parents are upset, they just want somebody to listen to them, to acknowledge them, to understand what they're upset about. Kathy said, even though she doesn't like home visits, she does feel that they are the key to really effective communication with parents. Because if you go to the home, a lot of times being on that parent's turf makes them more comfortable to talk to you about the things that are going on with their child and with the family as a whole. Wendy says the best thing to do when working with parents is just to greet them at the door, be positive, make sure you keep those lines of communication open. Working with regular education teachers or general education staff, Jessica said that you really need to use the language of inclusion, that they really need to understand that those children are general education children first, that they are part of your classroom, that if there's a cubby for every child in that classroom, there is a cubby for that child with special needs. If there's a desk for every child in that classroom, then there's a desk for that child with special needs. Just because they leave your classroom for a portion of the day or most of the day does not mean that they are not that child's teacher, that they are not responsible for making sure that that child is included in their classroom. Kathy says, I do not work with the regular education staff. And what she meant by that is, as our preschool program, we are both the general education and the special education teacher. So we work with ourselves or with other members of our team within the early childhood program. And for Wendy, she's been in both the special education and the general education classrooms. And she just says that you just need to follow that teacher's lead. Again, that communication piece, knowing what that teacher expects of you in terms of working with that child with special needs. Advice for first year administrators, Jessica says you need to just seek out as much professional development and training as you can. She received very little training in her administrative and supervision classes about special education, and she was really unprepared for that role when she started as an administrative designee her first year as assistant principal. So she really felt that you really need to get as much training as you can. Kathy, again, found a really good special education mentor, and that came into play for Jessica also. She had several other assistant principals that have been in the field for a while that she worked with, but we also have a lot of special education teachers within our school who've done this for a long time, and they really also helped her in her first year as a designee. So finding that special education mentor is key. And for Wendy, she said that communication, of course, is always important, and that you really need to build those relationships with your with your teachers, with your special education team, build up that base of people that you can go to ask questions and, throw ideas off of. Describing the role of the special education teacher and the building principal, Kathy says, show an interest in our preschool special education program. I think with our schools, even though they've been in the schools for many years, and still principals look at them as like a separate piece, even though they're in their building, they're kind of, our early childhood programs kind of governed through other administrators outside of the actual school. So sometimes, building principals and assistant principals don't always know where they stand with the preschool program. So Kathy's advice is just know my kids, show an interest in the program, get to know our parents, because, those parents odds are going to be your parents in a year or two. For Jessica, it's like, I'm the lead of the special education department, and it's my responsibility to build that team, be a member of that team, and, show an interest in those, in those kids so that I know what's going on with them. The characteristics that they are seeking in aspiring administrators are people who are good communicators, empathetic, willing to learn, can think on their feet, adaptable, and a good facilitator. Those are some of the characteristics all three of them felt would make good administrators. Overall, like I said, the participants wanted a leader who, with great communication skills, who's enthusiastic about their job and had a love of learning. I think was the common theme among all of them. In reflection, I really enjoyed meeting with these three different individuals. I know all three of them. Ms. Corwin and I worked together at another school before she became assistant principal, and we both joined the Rock Hill family at the same time. But it was really nice to sit down and talk about her first year really as an administrator and as a designee for special ed. So that was a lot of fun. Kathy and I worked together. We're peers, teammates. And so it was really nice to kind of get her view about, our special education department, our special education leaders, and things of that nature. And it's always nice to hear from a paraprofessional because they always have kind of a different perception about things and a different take on the program. So it was great to sit down with Wendy, who again is kind of our lead paraprofessional in the school. So, she had a lot of good insight and a lot of excellent points to be made. One of the things I think would be interesting with this assignment is actually getting a general education teacher's view of special education and how, what do they know about the program, what expectations do they have, and how they collaborate with the special education team. I think that is actually would be an interesting part to put in some presentations such as this. When I began this program, it's really not my intent to be a building principal. But I love learning the concepts of what it means to be a leader and what people are looking for when they're looking for, leadership. I have other roles that I want to pursue, down the line. In terms of leadership, such as a preschool coordinator or a program manager for an early intervention program, but the things in these classes will really help me when I'm, in a position to lead a team and to work with others in terms of special education. So I really think that this presentation is a great jumping off point when thinking about what kind of leader I want to be and what kind of characteristics I want to bring forth and the kinds of things that I want to do as an administrator.